Lights, camera, innovation. Walt Disney Studios chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform the movie-making process. Together, we kept a remote production hub in Hawaii and sync with a team in California to bring Lilo and Stitch to theaters this summer. This is picture-perfect collaboration. This is Walt Disney Studios with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
Choice Hotels get you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. And as your vacation maximizationer, I'm going to make sure you hear the maximum sizzle of Comfort Inn's free hot breakfast. Let's get real close. Maximum apple. Now that is fresh crispimization. Maximum waffle. Hear that crunch. And that's maximum coffee. Oh yeah, that's the pour I'm talking about. Breakfast maximized before hitting the road. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Happy Friday the 13th tomorrow, as is tradition over on this podcast. It's Friday the 13th this week. So, of course, we're going to have to talk about a Friday the 13th movie. But what's not tradition is that this one was picked by not Matt Kelly. So, Scott, I mean, I think I can guess why you picked Friday the 13th. But, hey, why'd you pick Friday the 13th?
And it's an anniversary. That's it.
Do you think we would have picked this movie at some point if it weren't a Friday the 13th and an anniversary?
See, I think yes. And the reason why
I love this movie, but I don't think there's anything to say about it.
So here's the reason why I say yes is I think that we are very often hesitant to pick the first film in a franchise when it's like Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Nightmare on Elm Street, because those are usually good movies, but like Friday the 13th starts as schlocky bullshit right out the gate. So I feel of all of them, this is the one that's most acceptable for us to actually cover the first one, because it wasn't really trying to be a good movie to begin with. But I've noticed over the last couple of years, and maybe it's ever since I started doing like, hey, it's Friday the 13th and I don't have any plans, I'm going to watch as much of the franchise as I can. Yeah. Even though I still would put Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite horror franchise, these films have all become like a weirdly comforting franchise to watch, because I think in that same way that I've described like YA novels and like Hallmark Christmas movies, it's just a very simple formula that they very rarely move away from, and you can just put on like any one of them and kind of zone out. It's almost cozy. It's like cozy as a slasher film can be in that way.
I will say that this is the first time that I watched it. I felt its like template or like ability to be the template, right? Like I understood that, but I felt more and more like, I don't know. I was like, the romance and the love scenes have more to them than I thought. Like the two initial sex scenes, albeit they end in death, were some more tender than I kind of think or categorize a Friday the 13th movie a lot of times, or even just slasher like relationships in general. That whole moment where they're out in the thunderstorm before they actually go, the Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
The moment they're in the thunderstorm before they get to that bunk, it's like it actually gives them purpose to have sex before, I mean, still desire and lust and like whatever, but it's not just like a walking into a bedroom where people are having sex that you literally couldn't place their character or name 5 minutes ago, which I feel is a common trope down the road. This one, I felt, I don't know, I actually appreciated this a lot more on this watch. And also, it's not falling into, like, you know, we record these before Friday the 13th, so it's not like we're sitting down watching the marathon, Matt, like you normally do, and like you sort of have the beats and the knowledge of where everything lands. A one-off Friday the 13th it kind of hits different.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that versus like when you're binging them, you're starting to like see every single trope over and over and over again.
Which is kind of how I approach them now. I just know, I know that Friday the 13th has all these sequels and has a thing, and like there's probably no other franchise. And again, I've discussed my not real love for this franchise, but I do think that it is the franchise that like you could just jump into and watch movie after movie after movie, more so than a Halloween or even like a Nightmare on Elm Street. I guess it's probably the closest, but
I think it's because this has the least amount of lore attached to it as well. Like all you need to know is like Jason Voorhees hockey mask and machete, like going into it. It's so interesting. The podcast. There's a podcast that I've loved basically since I discovered podcasting called The Flophouse, where they deep dive into like recent box office bombs, but they've been doing these bonus episodes where they'll just sit down and either play a lot of stuff that we do on our Patreon. They'll play like movie related games with each other, or they'll interview somebody. And they had someone who's working on a book about the history of Giallo, and he had actually mentioned how like Friday the 13th is probably the closest. He said the Friday the 13th film and the 90s erotic thrillers are like the closest thing to like American Giallo films. Obviously, because like
that's interesting.
When you get to Friday the 13th Part 2, they're literally pulling kill scenes from Twitch of the Death Nerve and stuff like that. But he actually pointed out something that I never thought about, and I want to bring this up here because it applies to this so well. Is we all know like the name Giallo comes from these like murder mystery books that had the yellow covers. He goes, what people forget is like the people who collected those books fucking loved Agatha Christie. And he goes, if you think about it through that lens, and Then There Were None is literally the blueprint for every Giallo and anything that follows that format, because you have a starting point of people, they keep dying, you know one of them is the person committing the murder, and you have to try to solve the mystery as different people get killed off. Now this one pulls that rug out from under us when the reveal is a character that we have not met up until this point.
Yeah.
But like, I'm sure first time watchers in 1980 are literally trying to figure out like which one of these people that I'm following is committing these murders.
That's an interesting framework. That's an interesting lens.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
You know, like I'd never really thought about it in that sense, but it's a really, really cool argument to be had.
I'll drink to that.
I was going to say, I heard a noise just now.
Kyle, what do you got?
I got beards, kittens, and canoes, which I've definitely had on here before, but just because of the canoe. I don't even remember a cat ever. But the canoe is essential. What about you, Scott?
I have Burn the Path from Branch and Bone. And the reason I did that is because how else are you going to get the camp ready in time? You got to burn some paths.
That's right. That's nice. That's a good one. Cheers.
Cheers to you. Now, the thing about this is that I did write a very loose synopsis, but again, this is a movie that we don't really need to do a synopsis for, because if you haven't seen Friday the 13th, 1980, that's pretty fucking crazy to me.
It's kind of baffling how you made it to this podcast.
To here. Yes, to this moment. If you haven't watched it, and you need to tell us before you, like, when you listen to this podcast, I need to know if there is somebody who has gotten to this point that has not seen Friday.
If this is your introduction to HMN because you're like, oh, I want to hear what these guys say about Friday the 13th, that's amazing, and let us know, and we'll probably give you swag. Now, don't lie about it because we'll
Don't
find
lie.
out.
We'll find you. We're
Don't
on
lie to us
Letterboxd.
because our swag's not that good. But
What are you talking about? What are you
no, I
talking
love
about?
our swag. Honestly,
Yeah.
our swag's pretty amazing.
It's
All right,
it's
well,
pretty
Scott,
dope swag.
let's attempt at least
Sure.
the summary. But I agree with you. I don't think that there's that much we need to really deep dive into here.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's so interesting because if you ever are like me and you go to check and see what trivia you might be able to find on Wikipedia or IMDb or Wikipedia, the IMDb comments sometimes are hilarious, like the reviews, because one of the top reviews right now, at least that I saw, was somebody saying, I had never seen this before, and this was a recent review. I had never seen this before, but I had seen so many things that it influenced, and so it's really hard to have any sort of perspective about how important this movie was, because of the historical context of it, watching it in 1980 versus watching it now. And I have to agree. I also think that that's just a wild thought process that there are people that are like still coming to see Friday the 13th, 1980.
Yeah.
Because it's just it's an institution, and I do love this movie. Probably of all the movies in this franchise, this is the one that I would be most likely to come back to, not because it's better, not because the kills are better, and I do have some misgivings with it, which we'll get to. But the reason why I think that this movie has the most nostalgia factor for me is that it feels the most. It feels like a summer camp. Like the rest of them kind of feel too modern. Like I wasn't even born when this movie came out, but it gives that weird artificial nostalgia of like, oh my God, this is, and there's another movie from around the same time that I won't mention that will probably be Matt's double feature, but they both have, I think it's the aesthetic of the clothing and hair that really just feels like young childhood for me. So anyway, that's what and I come back to this movie a lot. Maybe not every summer, but when I was in high school and probably all of college. So I'd say a good 8, maybe 10 years there. I watched it every summer, but it had been a while since I'd seen it. Probably about like 6 or 7 years since the last time I watched it. But let's get into a quick synopsis. So it starts with Camp Crystal Lake in 1958. And these kids are singing Kumbaya and other hymns around a campfire, and the girl playing the guitar and her boyfriend are just fucking real hard. And so they're
real hard. That is, kills aside, that is one of my most memorable just moments, is seeing them fucking right back and forth. I don't know, it's the framing and the way that it's there.
Yeah.
It's just like
I
and
have
that also
never
reminds
looked
me
at
the most
anyone
of
like
camp.
that before in my life.
No, but like there's this heightened. I'm sorry to jump. I just that moment is so important to me because I feel the same sort of way about the nostalgia of camp. Like it just gives me this idea that it's like, oh, we were right when we thought that the counselors were into each other. Like, you know what I mean? Like as a camper,
the hormones are like,
they were
yeah.
Raging
now
hormones.
here's the question. I have
Yeah.
a question for both of you guys, and then I'll answer my own question. But did you guys go to sleepaway camps, like summer camps, growing up?
No.
I was a counselor at one.
Okay.
And I went. I was a counselor, and Carly was there, and it was a Christian camp. So the amount of sex that was there is none, is zero.
Yeah, but the guilt was very high.
The guilt was high, and I will say I don't know if I should say this. One of the counselors that I went to that camp with later became a porn star,
Nice.
which is absolutely crazy.
Congrats to them.
And then
They survived camp,
they got out.
so they could go do porn.
They got out of it. I don't know if I want to keep that in there. That's fine. You keep it in there,
You
Matt.
didn't-
That's
yeah,
for,
You're not
that's
giving
for the
me any
listeners.
names. No one's
Yeah,
going to be able
no
to track
names,
that
no
down.
genders. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's safe. Matt, what about you? You
They
didn't go?
they had
No.
later come on to be a porn star. Other than that, nobody was getting it on at our camp. Matt, you didn't? Did you? Were you a camp counselor or a camper? At
No, none of the
no?
closest I ever came to any form of like summer camp stuff, all similar to you, Kyle, does tie back to church stuff, but it was like going on a missions trip for a week, or like, a church retreat for a weekend in the woods, or, like vacation Bible school, but that was more like driving there and back every day while still sleeping in my own bed. And like, even with like the missions trip stuff, it was always like college dorms that were being rented. It was never like true roughing it in the woods. I think I can count on like one hand the amount of times I've legitimately stayed in a cabin for more than a night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's that's just not. I also don't really get the vibe of like people who like to sleep in tents outside. Like, it's just not my scene.
Camping in tents
general
sucks, but like camping in a cabin is. I mean, that's cool. I think that's cool personally.
I'm gonna have to report back. I was supposed to do a little Father's Day camp trip, and I think that we're gonna. I mean, we might do like
tent?
a backyard
Like
because my son is still a little like young. We might just do like a backyard camping thing just to get the vibe. But I think we're gonna do a tent. Like, I think we're gonna give it a shot. But we won't be roughing it. The house will be right there.
Yeah.
That's
the appropriate way to do it if you're going to do it.
More for me than my son and then my dad, in that order.
Yeah. Now, I did go to camp, but it was not a summer camp. It was it was outdoor education. So it was a week. So I think it was 4 nights. So 5 days, 4 nights.
Okay. It
was 6th grade. They did it every 6th grade class would do it at my junior high, and I was petrified because I had never been away from home for that long, and it was also in the springtime. It was end of April, so it was. I remember being like very fucking cold. Like, it was very rainy. It was cold. I remember there are two specific things that feel like such archetypal camp experiences. I feel like they're so unanimously true for American summer camps or American camping experiences, like, going to like a Boy Scout camp or a camp that literally has cabins. We did a cookout, and I ate like sliced potatoes in with cheese on them in a in tinfoil. It's like that's all I ate that night, because I was like, I'm not eating chicken that someone is putting over a fire, because I did not trust that. And the other thing I remember is in the mess hall, they did Salisbury steak. Now, I didn't grow up with Salisbury steak, and it was the most horrific thing I'd ever seen on my fucking plate. In my, I guess I was, what is that, 6th grade, 12 years old? 12? Yeah. And I was just like, this is atrocious, and horrific. But I think I remember saying something about how terrible Salisbury steak was when Brian was on, and Brian said he loved Salisbury steak when you guys were growing up, right?
I don't know how this. Did you guys? I don't know if this was a. Keep in mind, I've spent most of my life in Pennsylvania, so I don't know what's a Pennsylvania thing and what was like a national thing. Swan. Did you guys have the Swan guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is Swan different than Schwan?
Or Schwan. Schwan is what I'm talking about.
I knew what I was saying.
Yeah. But they had the Swan as the logo, and it was
very confusing. Very confusing.
Yeah.
So my parents were big on the Schwan guy, like getting a bunch of stuff from there. And one of the things, Schwan was mostly like shit that you could cook in the oven or microwave pretty quickly.
A lot of it was frozen, right? And
frozen foods to keep on hand. So my mom one time loaded up on like a bunch of Salisbury steak, and like as far as like stuff that middle school to like 9th graders could easily and safely make, like Salisbury steak was pretty high up there, because it was just like a giant container of like 8 of them that you would just rip the film off and put it in the microwave for 10 minutes and it'd be done. So having 2 working parents at the time, especially my dad, who worked like crazy hours, sometimes if my mom was stuck in a meeting or something, she would just call and be like, hey, I'm not going to be able to cook or even really pick up anything. Can you guys just throw in a tray of Salisbury steak? I'll be home in like 10 minutes or whatever. So it kind of just became a regular Kelly thing. I remember loving it as a kid. I have not had Salisbury steak in probably 15 years. So who knows? I could try it and be like, what was wrong with me as a child?
It's like it's a hamburger
It looks
covered
disgusting.
in gravy. It's the most awful thing, and it's all brown, like an artificial brown color. Like it's so fucking nasty. Like,
oh, I can't. I have no. I don't. I have nothing about Salisbury steak. I've never tried it. I think I've had it once at a school cafeteria, but other than that, I can't even place, everything just runs in the same circle. I don't know.
It looks
I know
the
nothing
same
about
going in as it would be coming out either end, and I think that's what really fucks me up,
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
That's a big bummer.
That is all factual. There's no lies detected in that sentence, Scott, but
So
like
anyway,
I said, we loved it in
really-
the Kelly house.
Yeah, we got super, super off topic. Whatever, who gives a shit? You know what happens on Friday the 13th. So these two
Salisbury steak it is.
so these two counselors go off to get their fuck on, and an unseen assailant catches them and then stabs the boy in the stomach, and then we don't know what happens to the girl because they freeze frame her screaming face, and then we get the Friday the 13th logo coming through the broken glass, which I love that Sean S. Cunningham was originally, he and whoever wrote this were working on it and had a different working title. And then in the conversation as they were, working their way through the plot, he was like, well, why don't we do Friday the 13th? I don't think anything's been called Friday the 13th. And so he just made he had somebody make the imagery of that logo coming through glass, and he sent it to Papers. And that was his okay, now we own the rights to it.
Well, I think it was also, if someone sues us for that name, then we know that we can't make this movie under that title.
Yeah, and somebody did threaten to sue because there was another movie that was previously made, I think it was in the 60s or something, called Friday the 13th, and then it had a subtitle. But I think that somebody just got paid off, and then it never went to court. So there's that. But in any case, we fast forward. We move forward in time to present day, which is 1980, and it is. We see all these campers arriving these counselors arriving at Camp Crystal Lake because some guy was crazy enough to decide to put it back together, and this is the argument that I've always had about this movie, is that I always thought that it was May 13th. And now, just let me walk through this because I know the reality of it now. But my argument here is and has been that May 13th makes the most sense because they say they have 2 weeks. So this is happening, literally everything we see in this is happening in 1980. We're seeing it happening on the 12th. Well, maybe the 11th and 12th. It would make the most sense to me if they were setting up the camp, because it says that it's opening in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they would be opening up the camp the last week of June, because then that means they literally only have a month, and they only would have 6 weeks of kids coming.
Yeah.
Usually they're going to open the second week of June. So then they have 3 weeks in June, 4 weeks in July. That's 7 weeks, right? And then we have 3 weeks in August. That's 10 weeks. That's your summer break, right? So I don't know. But I know that the argument is that his birthday is June 13th. And so that would make sense to me, and that's why it makes a lot of sense to have this be the 45th anniversary of this movie, coming out, and also that it had to have occurred on the weekend of when this is coming out. Because I'm
so
guessing
we got full anniversary
triplet
coverage here.
Yeah, we get the anniversary, we get the date, and we get arguably the month. So
I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that all checks out to me. That all makes sense.
I can see your argument for the May 13th, but it's
logic was not this deep when they were writing the fucking script.
No.
The
But
treatment
that's what
wasn't like,
happens. I mean, that's why we
math.
still talk about this movie 45 years later.
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
it's and it's not that we don't have anything new to add. It's just we're just gonna keep talking about
Mostly personal anecdotes about summer camp.
That's right.
So we get kind of the crew that's trying to set this camp back up. They got 2 weeks to finish it up, and another counselor is hitching her way in, and she is at is it Mount Hope or whatever it's called, the town outside of Crystal Lake, and she meets the Harbinger, which I love. The Harbinger, he's my favorite character in the movie.
Yeah. He's the best.
And he's probably top 3 Harbingers, like he's just so good. So we get her, her second hitch is with this unseen assailant, which it's not implied the first time you watch it that it's the same killer, but I like the fact that when you watch it now, after you've seen it more than once, you're like, oh, it's the same killer from the beginning. Yeah. So she gets her throat slashed in the woods, and then the sexual hijinks, the kind of the premonition, or like they're kind of telegraphing all of their deaths, which I think is pretty cool. One girl gets scared at the archery range by her like pseudo boyfriend. Another girl, Marcy. She, I think that Marcy is probably of the counselors my favorite, because she is the one that really, more than anybody else, which is ironic, she gets the most characterization. She gets more than Alice, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, no, we don't really. I feel like we don't get Alice until the last third,
of the.
But we don't even get like exposition of her character. Like, there's this whole thing, like she's like, "Oh, I'm not gonna stay," and then the guy who's setting everything up is like, "Just give me a week, and then because she's like, I have to go back to California to figure out some." She's in New Jersey. I don't know why she needs to go back to California, but I have never understood like why Marcy gets all of this exposition of like she has this death premonition, and you sit and you listen to her tell that story to Kevin Bacon for like 2 minutes, and then we get their sex scene, and then we get a long chase scene for her. Well, it's not a chase scene, it's kind of like just a suspense scene. But with Alice, we don't really get a whole lot of exposition. We just see her running away from the killer, who is obviously, you find out after basically everyone else has been murdered, that it's Mrs. Voorhees. She was the cook at the camp back in 58. The counselors were fucking. They weren't paying attention to her son, Jason, who was handicapped. He drowned in the lake, and so she decided that she had to kill everyone. I do really love this discussion that Victor Miller is the guy that wrote the screenplay. I think he worked with Cunningham on it, but he actually went on to write a lot of soap operas, which is very interesting to me because his discussion of the way that he wrote the story is such, and I'm going to this is from Wikipedia, so this isn't my own words, but Miller delighted in inventing a serial killer who turned out to be somebody's mother, a murderer whose only motivation was her love for her child. And he says, I quote, "I took motherhood and turned it on its head, and I think that was great fun. Mrs. Voorhees was the mother I'd always wanted, a mother who would have killed for her kids." Miller was unhappy about the filmmaker's decision to make Jason Voorhees the killer in the sequels, saying, "Jason was dead from the very beginning. He was a victim, not a villain." Compound that with Estelle Parsons was originally asked to play Pamela Voorhees, and she declined. Now, she was in Bonnie and Clyde, but who they did get, I've completely forgotten her name.
Betsy Palmer.
Betsy Palmer, thank you. Now, I have a really, really interesting comment that she said. She said, I use this Stanislavski method of acting. I always try to find details about my character. With Pamela, and this is way after the fact because she panned this movie real hard, and she thought that it was schlocky bullshit. But then she came around when she saw that she was famous and not infamous for it. But she said, With Pamela, I began with a class ring that I remember reading in the script that she was wearing. Starting with that, I traced Pamela back to my own high school days in the early 1940s. So it's 1944, a very conservative time, and Pamela had a steady boyfriend. They have sex, which is very bad, of course, and Pamela soon gets pregnant with Jason. The father takes off, and when Pamela tells her parents, they disown her because having babies out of wedlock isn't something good girls do. I think she took Jason and raised him the best she could, but he turned out to be a very strange boy. She took lots of odd jobs, and one of these jobs was a cook at a summer camp. Then Jason drowns, and her whole world collapses. What were the counselors doing instead of watching Jason? They were having sex, which is the way that she got into trouble. From that point on, Pamela becomes psychotic and puritanical in her attitudes as she was determined to kill all of the immoral camp counselors. I think that is such an... This is the first time watching the movie that I had that view of Mrs. Voorhees, because I think that a lot of people think it's kind of she's lampooned because it's been 45 years and it's been done to death. But when you really think about it, there's been there was a significant amount of thought that went into that character, and I love that.
Yeah, there's a lot of and I kind of felt the same way. I was like, it really could have just been, and this is what this relates to what we said at the top too. It could have just been a mom with no depth, and luckily Betsy Palmer does bring something to it. It's not just we needed to find an older actor and we got an older actor to pretend to be a mom, and then that was that, right? It's like I kind of appreciate the depth in which it goes to, because she also does. All that stuff translates, whether we or not we know it going into that, it does translate as if this mother has a story and is not just, or even like a young person in a wig just pretending to be a mom. No, she's honestly, she's so great in this. And I kind of wish that there was more for her character beyond this moment, especially with what that backstory is and what that idea is.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting because it's lore, and it's not, given. It's like secondary lore, which is cool. It really enriches the story when you take it into consideration when you watch it. But watching it, it's not there. I think it's so funny, though, that Betsy Palmer took this so seriously. So she was a predominantly stage actor. And stage actors, when they're running lines and figuring out, their steps and everything like that, they actually hit each other. And I love this little comment. While rehearsing, Palmer slapped King, the woman who played Alice, in the face, and Alice was crying. She collapsed on the floor and she said, "Sean, she hit me." And Betsy said, "Well, of course I hit her. We were rehearsing the scene." And Sean Cunningham goes over, No, Betsy, we don't hit people in movies. We miss them," which is so funny to me because, I can just imagine this older woman coming in and just, slapping the shit out of this 20-year-old and being like, "Yeah, this is how we do it."
Yeah. That's how we did it back in my day, lady.
Yeah.
She didn't press charges, right?
No, she didn't. The thing I love about this is that Betsy Palmer did this movie because she was in need of a new car.
Yeah.
She read the script, she said it was a piece of shit, and then she was like, "Oh, I got a car out of it." And it makes me think of, I've never seen Jaws, or I've never seen the film, but I've seen the house that it paid for.
Yeah,
which is very similar.
Michael Caine quote about Jaws' Revenge.
Jaws, is that the third one? Jaws
That's
Revenge?
the fourth one. Jaws' Revenge is part 4. But yeah, I've never seen the movie. By all accounts, it's probably bad, but I did see the house that it bought. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
That's his infamous quote about being in Jaws: The Revenge.
Have you guys? Matt, I'm sure that you have actually heard what Gene Siskel wrote in his review about this movie.
No.
He called Sean S. Cunningham one of the most despicable creatures ever to infest the movie business. And he also published the address for the chairman of the board of Gulf Western, the production company, which owned Paramount. So it was basically, he went up the ladder. He published the dude's actual address and Betsy Palmer's home city and told people that didn't like the movie to write to them and express their contempt for the film, which, like, can you imagine doxing someone over the fucking movie Friday the 13th, which is just nuts.
Yeah, Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel
that was
both.
Siskel. They both hated it, but
Ebert.
Siskel was a real fuck about this movie.
Siskel sucks. They both just hate it hard. You can find, I think someone's uploaded most of the episodes of At the Movies with Siskel and Ebert, and they did like a whole like hour-long episode just about how much horror is ruining the cinematic experience.
That's
which
crazy
is
to
such
me.
like a 1980s perspective.
Viewpoint.
Yeah, like,
gosh, it's
it's like,
so like Tipper Gore conservative, like just ugh.
But I really hate myself for when I disparage movies that just focus on the gore, because I'm like, do I sound like these assholes from the 80s? Do I sound like I'm clutching my pearls? I want to say that there has to be some sliding scale, right? Where like I have a moral view on what, like, when you watch these movies, they're not sexually degrading the women. Like, well, this movie, okay, let's just say this movie, there is no sexual degradation of the female characters in this and the way that they're murdered. There are a lot of other ones that have that. And I feel like that's an okay stand. I'm like, sure, I will watch anybody get decapitated. I will watch that woman in My Bloody Valentine get smushed up onto the shower. I will watch tons of eviscerations, but like as soon as you add that sexual element to it, that's where I draw the fucking line.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that makes me puritanical. I think that just means that there's gotta be a line. It can't just be extreme.
I would agree, or at least I would say in my taste and my interest level is in agreement with that, right? Like I think I'm sure it's happened plenty of times that somebody makes an argument for the thing that, or the type of style of movie that you're describing that you don't dig on being something of dispute, right? Like that's something that has some value. I don't know, but it's just like the way that I approach, or the way that I want my horror stories told, even if it is just like a slash and kill thing. I don't know. There's different reasons, I suppose, to watch anything.
Yeah,
but
I guess.
My reason is not because
I guess it's like what you're bringing into the world, and that's exactly what Siskel and Ebert were saying. But maybe times are just different. Maybe the internet has jaded us all. Who knows?
Yeah, I suppose that is a factor in all of this too.
Yeah, I'm always pro the internet is a bad thing.
A bad place. Yeah.
That's why you're a judge now.
Yeah. That's why I judge the internet every Thursday night on Internet Supreme Court.
Your burger is served, and this is our finest Pepsi Zero Sugar. Its sweet profile perfectly balances the savory notes of your burger.
That is one perfect combination. Burgers deserve Pepsi.
This episode is brought to you by SelectQuote. Life insurance can have a huge impact on our family's future. With SelectQuote, getting covered with the right policy for you is simple and affordable. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents will tailor your experience to find a life insurance policy for your needs in as little as 15 minutes. And SelectQuote partners with carriers that provide policies for many conditions. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Go to selectquote.com/SpotifyPod today to get started.
I'm Cyndi Lauper. My psoriasis was all over, even on my scalp, which may mean 4 times the risk for psoriatic arthritis. But Cosentyx works on both.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis 300 milligram dose and adults with active psoriatic arthritis 150 milligram dose. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at Cosentyx.com or 1-844-COSENTYX. Ask your doctor about Cosentyx.
BTW, FYI. Visit Nexplanon.com/RN to learn about Nexplanon, a tenagestrel implant, 68 milligrams radiopaque, or ask your HCP IRL. Okay, TTYL.
Introducing Internet Supreme Court,
a new live stream show on Twitch and YouTube Live.
Our dishonorable judges and highly partial jury, that's you, join to cast judgment.
Every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
That's when we convene to debate the fate of memes and the weekly cultural zeitgeist.
From the hottest trends to the dumbest controversies.
Find out more at InternetSupremeCourt.com.
Subscribe to Geekscape TV on Twitch or YouTube to get notified when we're live.
InternetSupremeCourt.com.
Hey, you know, we're almost at that part of the show, Matt, because I have nothing else to say about this movie, but we do have to talk about double features, don't we?
We do have to talk about double features. And Scott, you're the one that picked this, so how about you start us with a double feature?
So I've been talking a lot about how this movie is kind of like an archetype for slashers. So why not go with a movie that we know and love that is very much this movie for the YouTube generation? Dude Bro Party Massacre 3.
Ooh, love to hear it.
Kyle, you better add a check to the times that I've had that as a double feature.
Yep, you know it. It's check the Letterboxd list for most frequently picked special or double features. That'll be up there.
I'm going to go with the one that I'm assuming Scott thought I would pick, which was the other camp slasher film that I believe came out this same year, 1980's The Burning.
Oh, I was not expecting that. I could have sworn. Well, Kyle, go ahead.
We'll see what Kyle picks. But
The Burning was on my list, but I actually would really like to watch the 2009 Friday the 13th remake.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad, and I can't believe we haven't done it. Like,
well, next year,
like
buddy.
it. I like it as far as those sort of like Platinum Dunes remakes go.
Yeah.
It's probably one of my favorite of the bunch, and it kind of also just reflects what we've been talking about as being like, it goes off the template and it goes off of like what this sort of boiled down idea of what Friday the 13th is, and it does so in a pretty decent way. Like, it's not it's maybe mindless and silly, but it does so in the way that it's supposed to be for 2009, and it doesn't take any liberties or that many more liberties to do something different than what it is.
No, I think that's
I
all
can't believe
fair.
neither of you guys said Sleepaway Camp.
I mean,
yeah.
Listen, I
That's
fucking
what I
love
was
the shit
referring
out
to.
of Sleepaway Camp, but I really was trying to think, like, what does this feel the most like
More
to
like
me?
yeah.
And this does feel more like The Burning. Like, it falls in that same category for me.
Gropsy.
Well, as we know, Friday the 13th, beyond being a film franchise, no one would be foolish enough to release albums or anything on Friday the 13th. But Scott, I do see in here that you have something you want to promo.
Yeah, my band Ichabod Crane is releasing our fourth full-length album.
What day is that coming out?
It's coming out tomorrow, as
Oh,
of
no!
it's coming out on June 13th, 2025. It's called Renaissance. It'll be streaming everywhere. You can go to ichabodcranemetal.bandcamp.com/merch, and you can buy physical copies. We have CDs, cassettes, gold cassettes. They look super sick, and gold vinyl. We also have shirts, and as of right now, those are all the things we have, but I may print a little bit more. I might do some other things like stickers or patches, things like that. But we have 2 singles out already as of the recording of this, but the full album will be streaming. You can also listen to it on Apple, Spotify, all that business. And it is, if you like screaming, then you'll like it. And it's also, every song is about monsters, so I think that you can't really go wrong with it. And ironically, my bass player is the one that suggested that we release it on Friday the 13th, and I was like, okay, that's amazing. I can't believe that I didn't think of that. I wasn't looking at the calendar, and I was like, weeks go by it, and I see that our last show, the last time that we played live, was June 13th, 2014. So at the exact same place, at Musica here in Akron, Ohio. So if you are listening to this on Thursday and you live in Northeastern Ohio, come to the show tomorrow night. Otherwise, listen to us anywhere you can listen to music.
All right.
Man, this movie or this podcast episode is chock full of anniversaries. Oh, I love it. It's like it's not just the movie.
too much.
It goes beyond. It's too many anniversaries.
All right. Well, you can contact Scott if you want something for this Ichabod Crane album. Pick it up. It's amazing. Now, Kyle, you also had something you wanted to bring up. This is a busy-ass episode of Horror Movie Night. We got some information about our P.O. box. What's happening over there?
So while you can get Ichabod Crane sent to you and your mailing address or P.O. box yourself, you can also send stuff to us. I low-key forgot that I had mentioned the P.O. box on this episode.
and
on this podcast.
Shit just starts showing up.
And I went and I picked up a package the other day, and there was a package in there for me, but it was about Horror Movie Night, and it was from a listener, Evan Johnston, who sent us some artwork as well as their zine, Holozine Inc. So I have a couple copies of Holozine Inc.
Oh, that's
from
cool.
Evan, which is they had done this as a Kickstarter a year ago, and they're going to plan on doing another round of Holozine Inc. And it's a bunch of stuff. It's like some poetry, some illustrations, really, really cool stuff, some short stories, really cool stuff. A comics in here. So I just wanted to give a shout out and say thank you, Evan, for sending us some goodies. But then I also wanted to reiterate, because I wasn't expecting it, and maybe this will happen another month or two down the road, P.O. Box 666 in Niantic, Connecticut, 06357. The P.O. box is open and available, and that goes it comes to me up in Connecticut. It also is the P.O. box for the free Blockbuster SECT. So if you have donations for the free Blockbuster, that is also available. But thank you, Evan, for sending all these goodies. He sent me some stickers too. He sent me this Metroid print, which is really awesome. So Evan is an illustrator in his own right as well. So really cool artwork from him. And yeah, if you want to correspond with us besides email, if you like a snail mail situation, P.O. Box 666 is the way to go.
All right. Well, also on top of all of that, HMN Podcast is just your quick way to find us. HMNpodcast.com. See the entire length of our podcast history and buy some shirts. Go to hmnpodcast.dasherly.com to buy even more merchandise. Hit up patreon.com/HMN Podcast to get bonus content and episodes early. And find us on all of our socials at HMN Podcast. Now, Scott, what is something that you've watched, listened to, read that you want to talk about?
All right, so I just have a quick one. I finally caved and rented Pater Noster and the Mission of Light. Have you guys heard of this?
No.
All right.
It was
Kyle?
It was at Salem Horror Fest, which I'm going to talk about Salem Horror Fest, but I did not see this at Salem Horror Fest. So I'm intrigued to hear what you have to say about it.
I liked it. I mean, it doesn't. So the conceit of the film is this girl who is a vinyl obsessed collector. So she collects vinyl. It's her thing. It comes across a bunch of these Pater Noster and the Mission of Light vinyls that are supremely rare. They're from the 70s, from this commune that did music and psychedelics, and they were all about alchemy and stuff like that. And she and her friends are invited to come and meet Pater Noster, who's like the kind of the cult leader. They do so, and as you would expect, they all get eviscerated. And it's low budget. It's very very predictable but fun. And I enjoyed my watch. I would recommend it. I think that it's supposed to be trippy, 60s cult exploitation, and they think that, or early 70s. I think that they really hit the mark with when they were doing a lot of that, in the film, and it was fun. And I love finding an independent film that has some heart, has a vision, and knows its limitations. That's what I was, it knew what it was going for, and it didn't try to do something that it was going to not be able to reach. I'm really proud of them for that. So
Where'd you watch it?
I rented it on Prime.
Yeah, nice. No, it sounded awesome. It was a 10:30 screening, and I had an hour drive to where I was staying, and that was not going to happen for me. But I'm so glad that it was good, and that Salem Horror Fest programmed it, because it sounds really interesting, and it sounds totally up your alley. It sounds like it's up our alley altogether.
Yeah.
Really, really, really like that.
Love that.
I watched a movie at Salem Horror Fest called Head Like a Hole, and it's not out yet, but it will be come next year. I talked to the director, Stefan, about it, and it is a really, really low budget, black and white film about a man who gets hired to watch a hole in the wall of a basement. And the idea behind it, it's a little sort of like Lynchian, it's a little like Clive Barker-y, and this man watches this hole for, he doesn't really question, he needs a job, he needs a gig, it pays well, it's consistent work, and is it really that hard to watch a hole in the wall and measure it every hour to see if it's grown any? No, but could you imagine doing that for more than a week, a month, a year? So it follows that, and it follows like he has a couple coworkers or people that he switched shifts with, and there's a head boss, and it's nice to just sort of sit there and experience what a character's experiencing sometimes. There's not a full, like, we need to get from this point in the story to this point in the story to this point in the story. We're just experiencing this dude's dealings with a hole in the wall. So it's called Head Like a Hole. It's playing a few more festivals this year. So if you frequent any of the horror fests or genre festivals, you may see it out in the wild. If not, it will be out in early 2026. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Head Like a Hole. It played on the back end, or after, rather, not on the back end, but it played the film after our film So Fades the Light, which I might talk about next week if you're listening. So.
And I'm going to talk about something that just dropped on Netflix the week that we're recording this. I don't want to call it a stand-up special. I don't know how I would classify this. But it is Conan O'Brien, the Kennedy Center Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. It's the 90...
It's a ceremony.
It's a ceremony. It's the 90-minute ceremony for Conan O'Brien being awarded the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. And it just has different comedians and actors kind of coming up and talking about Conan O'Brien. The big takeaway from it is that Conan O'Brien is genuinely, apparently, one of the nicest people you could ever meet. And you get that vibe over and over again. But the thing that pertains the most to Horror Movie Night is, I have to say once again that there's a particular actor that we know and love who is so goddamn funny. So I'll reveal that in a second. On the old Conan talk show, if you watched Conan's old talk show, he would do this bit where they would take still images of celebrities and superimpose a mouth from someone backstage over top of that character, and they would talk. And like the big ones for him was like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bill Clinton. So they have them both doing a bit, making fun of Conan. And they are not particularly good impressions of either one of these people. And then I don't even remember who the actor is, but they bring up this actor who's been dead for like 30 years. And Conan, like, it keeps cutting to Conan, and he's like, what is happening? Like, he is like baffled by why they're doing this. And this actor goes, if I was still alive, I would come there to show you a clip from my newest movie. And then immediately, for a split second, that actor's face disappears and you see it's Paul Rudd, and then it plays the Mac and Me clip.
Incredible.
And then it cuts back to Paul Rudd, and he's like, Conan, thank you for letting me do this bit for all these years. You know, it's tiring coming up with creative ways to show you the same stupid clip, but, you know, like, I love cinema. And he starts doing a parody of the Nicole Kidman theater ad where he's sitting in a movie theater talking about the importance of cinema, and then he looks to the screen and they play the clip a second. but this time you're watching the clip over Paul Rudd's shoulder as he keeps looking at the camera, looking shocked, confused, and unsure of what might happen next in the scene. Like, it's his first time seeing this clip. It is one of the funniest moments that I've experienced in all of 2025. So, like, that segment alone is so brilliantly paced. But I don't know. I needed a good, funny 90 minutes that also is like, there's some really important moments in there too. Conan gives a really great speech about Mark Twain and why he's so beloved all these years later, and like what Mark Twain stood for. And there's definitely a very like, fuck Donald Trump and what's happening with the Kennedy Center kind of attitude behind what he's saying. I know he quotes the Mark Twain quote of like, being a patriot is loving your country always and only loving your government when they earn it. And it's like, man, what a fucking quote. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of there. And I know that I had read an interview with Conan where he had said, like, once Trump had installed himself into being head of the Kennedy Center, a lot of people were, like, dropping out and not doing stuff. And he was like, I felt like if I was going to have any element of rebellion, the most rebellious thing I could do was continue to accept that ward and use that platform for 90 minutes to be disruptive and obnoxious and all of those things. So it's I'm glad that it's out there. It was a fun watch. I might rewatch it again one day because it is feel good. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know how many people rewatch like an award ceremony. Like,
that's weird. Weird even for you, buddy.
Yeah. But you know what's weird for everybody, including me, listening to Horror Movie Night and coming back week after week. But I say you do it anyway. So stay tuned for more Horror Movie Night.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.